So grew up in Western Massachusetts, not really sure what I wanted to do out of high school. I was told I was not college material, which I find a little ironic at this point. So I did what most folks do, join the military.
The military offers a plethora of opportunities, but charting a career path is not always straightforward. For Armand Balboni, the journey started with the Coast Guard and a leader who believed in him.
It was really a senior chief who encouraged me to take some classes. So I started taking community college classes.
A deployment to Bahrain in the first Gulf War motivated him to earn an undergraduate degree. And then
I go back to what I learned in the military. You go until someone says stop. And no one ever said stop. So I just kept going.
And go he did. Serving in the Army, the training he received made him an innovator in medicine. He earned 3 graduate degrees, an MD, PhD, and JD, focused on medicine, infectious diseases, and patent law.
The problem is, in a battlefield situation, blood loss, hemorrhagic shock, is the number one killer of folks on the battlefield. You stop the blood loss, but then what do you replace it with?
Balboni's success in the field let him incorporate an effective way for the U.S. Army to treat the wounded: freeze-dried plasma, a World War II discovery that he finally brought to the fight.
The problem is that whole blood is, one, it has an expiration date, it's heavy, and it's a finite resource. And so you can freeze-dry plasma. When you take all the water out, you dehydrate it. And that means that it's lighter, you can carry more of it, you can move forward with it. And a trial I ran in the Army on active duty with special forces in Syria, they used freeze-dried plasma for the first time, and it absolutely saved probably 16 lives that wouldn't have been saved otherwise. This is a life-saving product.
Armand Balboni still leads medical missions in the private and military sectors. A 2-time CEO, he led a clinical trial during the COVID-19 pandemic and also helped raise billions in capital for emerging healthcare technologies. He understands that financial and human resources are just as important as science and logistics.
As the CEO, it's the first time I was confronted with this idea of I was expected to lead. And so as a leader, I had to go raise money. And I did that by telling a story that connected people to the efforts of what we were doing. I've moved well outside of the medical arena. As a matter of fact, if you're coming to see me as a physician, I would argue that you're in trouble. Come to see me because I can raise money and lead people.
In this episode of Army Matters, our co-hosts sit down with Lieutenant Colonel Armand Balboni, a scientist who leads innovation efforts at the United States Army Southern European Task Force, Africa. From the Coast Guard to the Army, from the classroom to the battlefield, and from the lab to real-world operations, this is a conversation about purpose, innovation, and service. I'm Carrie Varro-Heikis, and this is Army Matters.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to your next episode of Army Matters. I'm Lieutenant General Retired Leslie C. Smith, the 66th Inspector General of the United States Army. And as usual, I'm here with my good podcast buddy, my good friend,
the 15th Sergeant Major of the Army, Sergeant Major of the Army Retired Dan Dailey, and the Vice President for NCO and Soldier Programs here at AUSA. Les, how you doing today?
I'm good. And, I didn't tell you what I did here at AUSA.
What did you do?
I'm the Vice President for Leadership and Education.
You are?
I am.
That's
so
right.
we're like brother vice presidents too.
Yeah.
So Dan, where are you today?
I am in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri.
Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. Where are you at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri?
I am at the Auto Skill Center, part of the Morale, Wealth, and Recreation facilities for our soldiers and families, teaching young troopers how to maintenance their cars and change their oil.
Great. And I know exactly where it is. It's right before you go down the hill.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're doing life skills training today.
Yeah.
Getting
Did you
some
start
life
this
skills.
morning by running up and down that hill?
I did. Yeah.
That's a pretty good hill, isn't it?
In my rental car.
That's good.
But you know what? It's actually fitting that you say that because we're going to talk about somebody with incredible skills today, aren't we?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, he's got more degrees than the alphabet.
I think our listeners heard me say it before. Wicked smart. He's wicked smart.
Yeah.
Wicked smart. Yeah.
Well, anybody that's got a JD, MD, PhD, MICKEY, and all those other things, you got to be pretty smart, bro.
Yeah.
So should we bring him on?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. Lieutenant Colonel Armand Balboni, welcome to Army Matters, sir.
Well, glad to be here and, looking forward to the conversation.
Okay, great. So Armand, as a soldier, you have the most unique career journey and background I've ever heard of. And I've been around a long time. You've done so many things that we're going to talk about. And you're currently now in Vicenza, working as part of the Advanced Capabilities Directorate, as part of the U.S. Army Southern European Task Force, Africa, U.S. Army SETAF-AF. And boy, there's so many cool twists and turns that our listeners are going to be so happy to talk about them.
Yeah, so SETAF-AF is involved right now in incorporating all of these new innovative technologies on the African continent with a very, very large-scale exercise called African Lion 26. African Lion 26 is the opportunity for the big Army to test out new technology, new processes, and more importantly, allow the warfighter to get their hands on innovative technologies today that they can then field tomorrow.
Yeah, that's good. So tell us a little bit about, even before you joined the Army, your early career and why and how you entered the service. Where are you from originally?
Yeah, so originally from Western Massachusetts, so the wicked smart land.
No, here we go. It just clicked on, Dan.
It did.
Go ahead.
And so grew up in Western Massachusetts. Not really sure what I wanted to do out of high school. I was told I was not college material, which I find a little ironic at this point. So I listened to my then girlfriend, now my wife of almost 30 years, and joined the military.
Okay.
And I joined the Coast Guard, E1. So this journey started as an enlisted sailor in the Coast Guard on active duty, and it's gone from there.
Okay, so were y'all already dating, or were you already married then?
No, we were dating.
Okay.
We worked in a pizza place together, in a pizza restaurant together, and I was not going anywhere fast, and so she recognized that maybe she recognized some potential that maybe I didn't recognize, and encouraged me to go do something else, like a lot of folks do.
Yeah. So you're a private in the Coast Guard, and what was your job? What did you do?
So I was at E1 and then E2, and then as with basic training, I was an honor grad, so I got to pick where I wanted to go, and so I picked Coast Guard Station Fire Island down in New York, doing search and rescue.
Oh,
and
cool.
so I thought because I saw the videos in the recruiter's office that I was going to be out driving boats immediately. All I was driving was a lawnmower for my first summer there, and paid my dues. Realized really quickly that I needed to get ahead, and that was by studying and learning from the other NCOs that I was with and my crewmates. And quickly moved up to be a boat driver, a coxswain, and did search and rescue and law enforcement before I left.
Yeah. So, sir, you said you were told that you weren't college material. We hear adults say that to kids sometimes. Who told you that first? And at what point did you realize that you were capable of much more?
So it was, unfortunately, it was a guidance counselor. And I think, part of this is probably my recollection of it, but that's absolutely what I heard. What they were probably saying is, go learn some life skills and then reattack. But at 18, you don't really hear that. So it took me a long time. It was really my military service that got me in condition for college. All those things that people intuitively know how to do, I just never learned. And so show up on time, do the work, study, learn from others. All those are real skills that you get out of the military.
So as you mentioned, you went from enlisted service to pursuing advanced degrees. Tell us about that journey. I mean, were you still in the Coast Guard and just started taking classes?
It was really a senior chief who was there, John Penny, if he's out there listening. He's now retired, who encouraged me to take some classes. So I started taking community college classes and then got out of the Coast Guard, left active duty, and was recalled as a reservist because we all have an 8-year enlistment. And I was sent in the first Gulf War to Bahrain. And when I got back, that really motivated me to attend college full time. And I did my undergraduate degree in anthropology. Not really sure what I was going to do, but started that journey and trusted that it would get me to where I needed to go.
So then you kept going to school and you pursued a medical degree and a PhD and a law degree. I mean, so we're talking a lot of classes here, right? So obviously there's some overlap there, but what inspired you to do, did you say, hey, you know what, I'm just going to do all three? What the heck? Why not?
Listen, as life often does, you have great mentors. And so I had a mentor as an undergrad who said, just like you, sir, he said, anthropology, what on earth are you going to do with anthropology? Nothing against anthropology, but, we don't know where that's going to go. And he encouraged me to apply to a program called the Humanities to Medicine program, because I'd always kind of dabbled in that world. And he gave me the encouragement to go after something hard, do hard things. And it's exactly what he said. And so I applied to the Humanities to Medicine program, which was at Mount Sinai School of Medicine in New York. Mm-hmm. Went to that program without any background in the traditional sciences. They take people like that because they feel you'll make a better physician. You're more empathic and you have a different way of viewing the world. And so I started that program, and it was an MD PhD program. The HPSP, Health Profession Scholarship Program with the U.S. Army, was the only one to give me a scholarship. That's how I ended up in the Army.
Oh,
there's the hook.
Yeah,
that was the hook. Someone saw some value there, and I started. I was in New York in 1999 in Manhattan, and I have no idea why now. That someone came to the medical school and said, "Hey, if you go to law school, we'll pay for you to go to law school and give you more funding." And since the HPSP scholarship barely paid for my life in New York and my wife, I did that. I did them all at the same time. I would go, I did the first 2 years of my MD, 4 years of a PhD, went to law school at night, and then finished out medical school. Funny story, though, I actually got... I was on a disciplinary board from the HPSP folks because they said, "You're going to law school at night. We didn't know about that." And my comment was, some people play basketball, some people, take class. I go to law school, and I still met all my requirements. That's how it happened.
Wow. So I mean, I'm thinking to myself, who does this, right? I mean, how'd you let your brain relax? I mean, it's. There's I ran TRADOC for a few years, and we did a study about how people learn. And, the average person can only intake new information in an environment conducive to do it 4 to 6 hours per day. I mean, you're somebody that it completely exceeds that. Yeah.
Well, so let me put it this way, right? It takes a certain amount of energy to get out of bed every morning.
Yeah.
Right. And we all get out of bed. And I would argue that it doesn't take 3 times as much energy to do 3 things during the day. The big block of energy is just getting up and moving forward and doing the right thing and patterns of life and habits. Again, I go back to what I learned in the military. You just you go until someone says stop, and no one ever said stop. So I just kept going.
Okay, so what was your specialty in the MD phase?
Infectious disease. So I was doing research on infectious diseases. And that was, again, something the Army wanted me to do.
Okay. And what did you want your law degree to focus on?
They kind of told me what they wanted me to do. So intellectual property, patent law, looking at scientific patents. And so it really was taking the skills that I already had. And this is why I say it doesn't take 3 times the energy, because I was using the same skill sets. And maybe that's what saved me, to your point about, how much you can take in. I was using the same skills over and over again. So it was kind of reinforcing the knowledge I already had to do the extra thing.
Mm-hmm. So Armand, you took the Army's HPSP. I'm pretty familiar with that because my youngest daughter is an Army doctor now. But you said something was missing at the time. Why did you decide to do that?
Yeah, I love medicine, and I love that aspect of helping people, but I love research as well. And so the PhD was just as important for me as the MD was. And again, it was the Army that came back and said, there are some very, very specialized medical researchers in the Army, and we think you would be good at that. And so that's what we want to focus you on. So it was again, another great advisor in the HR field that kind of pushed me down that path. And I ended up, after I got done with all of my training at USAMRIID, U.S. Army Medical Research Institute of Infectious Disease, at Fort Detrick in Maryland, doing infectious disease research and specifically working on a virus, the filovirus, which we all know commonly as Ebola. So that turned out to be my passion going forward.
So, but then you decided to come back on active duty. Why?
I did. I had a 14-year payback because of the HPSP. Mm-hmm. So I didn't plan for that part of it. I don't think I read the fine print. So I had a 14-year payback. And I started it at USAMRIID doing infectious disease research, had some great leaders there that were always looking out for me, and went to the FDA for a little while to do a fellowship, and then ended up in Africa with then General Williams for the Ebola outbreak.
Okay, so let's back up a little bit. So you did your time, your 14 years, and then you started a company. Explain to our listeners, how did that happen? And then what did you use as a military guy that which helped you to start the company?
Sure. Well, I'd always been interested in difficult problems, right? And so one of the ways you can get after those problems is by, companies have ideas, and I said, well, why don't I start a company to get after one of these difficult problems? And so some people I knew from medical school and we started a company. It worked out really well. We had lots of employees getting after problems in biotech. And so how do you develop drugs? How do you identify a problem and get after it and motivate people to do good and do well, right? To do all the things that you need to do to keep a company running. And so that was what I decided to do when I left active duty. I was a professor at West Point on active duty and finished my payback. And one of the companies I started in the middle of COVID sourced a drug, an antiviral drug from Japan, ran a phase 3 clinical trial, things that I had done in the Army, and hired a bunch of people to get after it, raised about $50 million for the company, and ran a large trial in the middle of COVID. A lot of this is just a leadership 101. Get up in the morning. How do you do what you need to do? How do you motivate other people to do things to move a product forward? And for us, the talking point for the company was in fact do good, do well. If we try and do the best for the most people with this product, the company will naturally do well, and we'll move forward. And that's exactly what happened. The company did well. The drug worked for COVID, and the rest is kind of history after that. I left the company after that to somebody else, but the fingerprints were all over it. And frankly, the drug that we sourced was one that I had worked with, an antiviral drug that I had worked with when I was on active duty at FDA during the Ebola outbreak. So again, there's stuff going on. The Army is doing great work all the time. The military is doing great work all the time in this field. We develop things that other people don't want to develop because their motivation is different. And so I found that we could leverage that ecosystem in the private sector and help move a product forward. And that really is the beginnings of my work in innovation, and it does take us to where I am now. That's really how it worked.
That's cool. Let's back up a little bit. So
Sure.
You taught not only at West Point, but also at another service academy, right?
That's correct. Yep, at the Air Force Academy as a civilian, as an Air Force civilian.
Okay, so let's jump forward to today. So tell us a little bit about the work you do today, both as a civilian and as your current job at SETAF. What does SETAF do, and what's your role there?
Innovation, and more importantly, acquisition is a new warfighting function. And so, this idea of innovation, well, what does that mean? How do you really innovate? How do we drive this process forward? How do we get things to the warfighter more quickly? And so, in the private sector, this is just what you do. You innovate or you die as a company. And so I was asked to come back on ADOS orders, again, this ADOS program. I don't know how they got my name or how they found me, but someone did.
I know how. Yes. They got you in the database, bro. But go ahead.
There's a reason. And I got here and they said, you are going to now go do innovation. And Lieutenant Colonel Nick Dubas and I together stood up this innovation team, which is how do we identify and push forward new ideas, and I'll talk about that in a second, to enable the warfighter to do what they need to do. How do we reduce things like sensor to shooter timelines? How do we make C2 better, command and control better so that leaders can make decisions more quickly? And what I said when I got here, and I think it's turned out to be true, is let's stop focusing on the shiny marble. It's not the thing that's going to make us better necessarily. It's important. It's the processes and the people that are going to make us better. And so when I say innovation, I'm like, how do we integrate these new technologies in a way that allow our warfighter to get at what they need to get after more efficiently?
So you've been a CEO. You are now on active duty for operational support. You raise dollars for private sector funds. So how is what you're doing now tied to what you did then?
As the CEO, again, it's the first time I was confronted with this idea of I'm a relatively smart person, but I was outside of the medical arena. You're expected to be a leader, not necessarily what you were before. And so as the CEO, I was not expected to be a physician or a scientist. I was expected to lead. And so as a leader, I had to go raise money. And I did that by telling a story that connected people to the efforts of what we were doing. So storytelling was a huge part of it, fact-based, obviously, and data-driven. And so that's what I did. I would also argue that outside of being a CEO, the company that my partners and I created, we've raised close to $4.5 billion for about 1,000 companies. And now there are 28 employees. And so I've moved well outside of the medical arena. As a matter of fact, if you're coming to see me as a physician, I would argue that you're in trouble. Come to see me because I can raise money and lead people.
America turns 250 this year, and your story matters. The Association of the United States Army invites kindergarten through 12th grade students, college students, and the general public to enter the My Country, My Story Writing and Art Contest. Submit a 150-word reflection and a piece of traditional artwork that shows your connection to America. Winners receive a $100 gift card and will be recognized on AUSA's Army Matters podcast and on social media accounts, as well as at the AUSA annual meeting, which welcomes 40,000 attendees in DC. The deadline is August 8th. Visit ausa.org/contest to learn more. That's ausa.org/contest.
Welcome back to Army Matters. So let's get back to maybe the hottest topic in the Army right now, innovation. You said your whole career has an innovation thread. What did you mean by that?
Something that's been a constant for me has been an insatiable curiosity about the world. I think that's what got me to go down and join the military. It's what got me to push to move ahead. It's what got me to go to school and the companies. That's been the constant thread for me. I'm curious and I ask lots of questions. That, at the end of the day, is what innovation is. How do you identify wicked problems and bring solutions to bear on those problems? If you don't have that innate curiosity, you are not going to be an innovator. Nothing wrong with that, but I think innovators share that personality trait. Never enough questions and ways forward.
I want to dig into innovation just a little bit more. So you have said that innovation is more about people and relationships than technology. Now, from a normal average listener, they'd be like, what is he talking about? What are you talking about?
So I think that, again, we can talk about the process of freeze-dried plasma. The innovation was enabling the warfighter to develop the framework to get the product forward quickly. And that involves all kinds of folks. It involves our medical planners, and it involves our logistics folks to create new processes so that we can track and identify the product, and then also create new TTPs, training guidelines, to be able to use it. That's innovation as well. You can have all the great ideas in the world, but if you can't execute on those ideas, you don't end up with a viable product. And so I would argue that we don't have a technology problem in the military right now. We have an integration debt. Technology alone won't solve this.
We talk about this too, and it's time, right? It takes 5 years to get something on the battlefield, from conception to realization. So how do you reduce years to days, and what kind of team dynamics make that possible?
So this again, I think, is where leaders lead, right? Once you frame the problem, I need to find a zealot, somebody who's willing to see the value in this change, and work with those folks. When you build a coalition of the willing, things move much more quickly. I would also argue that some of the best ideas come from our most junior folks in our ranks. And so just opening up the aperture to give them a voice creates the zealots necessary to move something along. And so that's also been something I've worked on.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So what does it mean to know something you worked on can directly save a life?
That is a profound statement, sir, and it's what lets me sleep at night really well. And so I was the inventor on a drug that's on the market now, because of an idea I had and someone saw value in that. I work on another program for a really neglected tropical disease that I hope we're going to be able to move forward here pretty shortly. It is, at the end of the day, what drives me. It is what I'm hoping. Those are the things I'll remember more than money is nice. And I've been really poor, and I've been okay, and I'd much rather be okay than poor. So I get it, but at the end of the day, that's not what is going to be my legacy. My legacy is going to be doing things that help people.
I got one other thing. We didn't really talk about it a lot. What role and part did you play in COVID-19 vaccine development, and how does that help you today?
So my role as the CEO of the company, we were actually developing a therapeutic, a pill for the treatment of COVID. There's a drug called Paxlovid, which everyone takes to reduce the symptoms. It was the same kind of drug to help folks with COVID.
Doc, you said everyone loves innovation until you try to change things. We all know how hard change is. But what does that look like in practice? What does that look like?
It is just relentless getting after the problem, and sometimes a lot of grinding to get things done. But if you push in a way that's, you have to have a lot of emotional intelligence to realize when people are uncomfortable and back off a little bit. But that doesn't mean you quit or give up. It really is a day in and day out fight. It's overnight success, sometimes years in the making.
So what keeps you up at night in this role? You talked about, are we doing enough fast enough for the warfighter? And how can AUSA help in these conversations?
I think there's a top-down requirement for getting after, again, wicked problems, but it's also not forgetting that I would argue that almost all of the really great ideas come from the bottom up, and encouraging a system of systems that allows for some of our most junior soldiers to get after some of these problems. I would argue that coding is a great example. And vibe coding, which is the newest form of using AI to code apps. There are soldiers literally sitting in the barracks here on the weekends that have great ideas if we would just let them get after them. And so creating a culture where it's okay to fail is one that I think leaders need to embrace, and fail fast. I know there's a lot of talk about that, but I think that is the next big step for leadership, is to recognize that there needs to be a cultural change to allow folks to experiment and again, fail fast. That's what keeps me up. If we don't do that and we don't change our processes, we can have all the new tools that we want in the world, but they're not going to help.
Armand, what would you say to a young person who's been told that they're not capable of success? Sometimes
what they really mean is you're not ready to do something. I would say maybe there's a follow-up question. Well, what specifically can I do to be prepared for this next step? And then, I'm not a huge fan of the response, go with your passion. I think go with what you're good at and become better at it.
Yeah. Doc, you're someone that we could talk to. I say this often, but honestly, I don't think we've picked a micromillimeter of your brain yet, but we do have limited time. I have just a two-part question for someone that has been in and out of service and in and out of civilian sector and is highly educated, right? What does service mean to you today? And also, I think I'm going to draw some credit out of you for someone in your life, because you mentioned a young lady who pushed you, and I'm sure that she was behind the scenes supporting you through all that education, which isn't easy. So tell us about those two things and close us out, please.
What service means to me is being aware and open to something larger than myself.
Mm-hmm.
There is, having done this for 24 plus years,
mm-hmm.
there is a service is, again, recognizing that you are just one small part of the picture, and giving back to something larger than yourself is really what it's all about.
And you mentioned earlier there was a young lady that pushed you in the beginning, but supported you. What's your message to her for everything she's done?
Oh, I could not have done it without Tracy, my wife. She has been with me on this whole journey, and I think we say it a lot, but it's worth saying again. You do not serve yourself. Your family serves with you, and the reason I've been able to be even as moderately successful as I have is because of her undying support. And so for that, I love her dearly, and would not have been able to do it without her.
That's good. Now, do you have any children?
One daughter. Yep, one daughter.
What does your daughter do?
My daughter now, she's 23, and she's just starting graduate school in clinical psychology in Colorado.
Oh my gosh!
Oh, nice. Another wicked smart person.
Smart.
Yeah, it's
and
good.
much smarter than I am, and a much harder worker. So she'll be successful.
Yeah. That's good. Armand, we really appreciate your service to the nation on so many areas, and appreciate you doing all the things. Please send our regards to the leadership team over there, and we're looking forward to come out and see what you do in person sometime.
Well, Italy is a great place. You are always welcome. So thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah. Thanks, Doc.
Thank you.
Did you know that as a member of AUSA, you have access to many benefits. From car rental to entertainment discounts, the opportunities are ample. Visit us online at ausa.org/benefits to learn more.
To all our listeners, thanks for joining us. Army Matters is brought to you by the Association of the United States Army, the U.S. Army's professional association, member-supported, Army-connected. Visit us at ausa.org for more information or to become a member. Your membership helps AUSA continue to carry out its mission, educate, inform, and connect with the total Army, our industry partners, and supporters of a strong national defense. Today's episode was hosted by Lieutenant General Retired Les Smith and SMA Retired Dan Dailey, and anchor hosted by Carrie Barrow-Heckes. Andy Bosnack is the associate producer and supervising sound editor. Major Ryan Crane is the writer, and Ellen Toner is the content editor. Umzinga Curry is the executive producer. Carrie Barrow-Heckes is the senior producer, and Savannah Campbell-Smith is the producer. Be sure to subscribe to Army Matters wherever you get your podcasts, and please leave a review. As you know, we love seeing stars in the Army, especially if it comes in the form of a 5-star review. AUSA's Army Matters podcast can also be heard on Reach Across America Radio on Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern on the iHeartRadio app, the Odyssey app, and the TuneIn app with the search of the word Wreath. For questions or to provide topic recommendations, email us at podcast@ausa.org. AUSA's Army Matters podcast primary purpose is to entertain. The podcast does not constitute advice or services. While guests are invited to listen, listeners, please note that you're not being provided professional advice from the podcast or the guest. The views and opinions of our guests do not necessarily reflect the views of AUSA. I'm LaSharon Duncan, hoping you have a great Army day. Hooah!